Rodney Johnson and myself. And none of us knew we were playing. We just thought we were going down with the first team for the experience. Gary Sprague had already played one game, so we went down to Swansea and we were there in about 1:45 before the game.
At 76, Norman Hunter looked back on decades of bone-crunching tackles and blood-soaked pitches, and people expected him to name the hardest men he'd ever faced. But here's the twist. He's the best ever, Hunter said, pointing not at the thugs or the hatchet men, but at Bobby Moore, the elegant defender who never broke a sweat. It's the moment you realise Norman Hunter was never just the monster they made him out to be. Sure, he earned the nickname Bites Yer Legs and became the poster boy for everything brutal about English football the late 1960s and early 1970s. Leeds United under Don Revie were ruthless, efficient, hated by everyone outside Elland Road. Hunter sat at the centre of that storm, sliding in with studs up, leaving forwards in heaps. But reducing him to violence misses the point entirely. In 1974, his peers voted him the first ever PFA Players Player of the Year. That wasn't for intimidation. It was respect for a footballer with a sharp brain, tactical eye, and an appreciation for true greatness. And if you're loving this story so far, hit that hype button right now and give this video some hype. It helps more people discover these incredible football stories. 76, Hunter named his 6 favourite players. The list tells you everything about what he valued. 3 were his Leeds brothers, Billy Bremner, Giles, Jack Charlton, the spine of Revie's siege mentality family. 3 were elite rivals, Bobby Moore, Jimmy Greaves, George Best, men who possessed the kind of star power and individual brilliance that Hunter studied, admired, and spent his career trying to stop. This isn't just nostalgia. It's a window into football's most physical era, seen through the eyes of one of its most uncompromising figures. Let's start with the player Hunter admired most outside the Leeds bubble, the man who haunted his England career and still earned his deepest respect. Number 6 is George Best. Hunter called him an express train, and that wasn't hyperbole. Best could run as fast with the ball glued to his boots as he could in a straight sprint without it. His balance, his close control, his ability to shift direction mid-stride, all of it was dazzling. But what truly amazed Hunter wasn't the skill, it was the courage. The late 1960s and early 1970s were the era of the licensed assassin. Tackles from behind were legal. Pitches were often mud baths. Defenders like Hunter, Ron Harris and Tommy Smith were given free rein to destroy, and George Best didn't hide. He ran straight at them. Hunter watched Best take an unrelenting barrage of attacks, defenders hacking away at him, and still Best would demand the ball again immediately. Hunter defended Best's bravery against critics, stating plainly that Best was a braver man than many people gave him credit for, and he had the scars on his legs to prove it. Hunter knew exactly where those scars came from, likely inflicted some of them himself. But that's what earned his respect. Best possessed what some called the destruct button genius, playing on the edge of the precipice, refusing to be intimidated. For a man whose entire defensive philosophy was built on intimidation, Best was the ultimate challenge. You couldn't frighten him, you couldn't break him. He'd get up, dust himself off, and come at you again. That's the kind of opponent Hunter respected most, the one who looked him in the eye and refused to blink. Number 5 is Jimmy Greaves. If Best was the bravest, Greaves was the cleverest. Hunter called him the Ghost, and it was the perfect nickname. Greaves had an uncanny ability to disappear from the physical battle, drifting out of play, avoiding tackles, refusing to engage in the war happening around him. Then, when you'd forgotten he was even on the pitch, he'd materialise in the 6-yard box and score. Hunter's analysis of Greaves was pragmatic. He noted that Greaves didn't relish the rough stuff and didn't like it when tackles were flying in. Don Revie famously instructed his Leeds players to ignore Greaves when he was in midfield. Revie told them Greaves wasn't the bravest of players or the hardest of workers outside the box. The strategy was to deny him the oxygen of the game by not engaging him until it was critical. But then came the caveat that terrified Hunter. Near to goal, of course, it was a different matter. Hunter recalled one specific match where he felt he'd kept Greaves in his pocket all afternoon. He was right on top of his game and hadn't given Greaves a kick. Then chaos erupted. A collision involving Alan Gilzean and Leeds keeper Gary Sprake sent bodies sprawling. The ball popped loose. Who should be there? Greaves just tapped the ball into the back of the net. Hunter admired Greaves because Greaves defeated the Leeds method. You couldn't intimidate a ghost. You couldn't tackle a player who wasn't there. Greaves's economy of movement and lethal finishing commanded the respect of a defender whose entire game was built on physical domination. Number 4 is Bobby Moore. This is where Hunter's list gets complicated. Moore was the obstacle. He was the reason Hunter earned only 28 England caps instead of the 100 plus his talent arguably deserved. Yet Hunter named him as a favourite, revealing a professional reverence that outweighed personal frustration. Hunter viewed Moore with near godlike reverence. Moore represented everything Hunter wasn't: southern, clean-cut, elegant, establishment face of English football. Hunter represented the northern, gritty, industrial reality. Despite this divide, Hunter recognised Moore's genius. The distinction lay in their methods. Hunter was a destroyer, a tackler who engaged opponents physically. Moore was an interceptor. He wasn't fast. He compensated by learning to read the game and positioning himself perfectly. Johnny Giles once noted that while he preferred Hunter for the week-to-week grind, Moore had that extra class for World Cups and finals. Hunter's selection of Moore is a humble admission of this hierarchy. He recognised that while he could break an opponent, Moore could nullify them without making contact. The relationship is forever coloured by the events of 17th October 1973, the World Cup qualifier against Poland. By then, Moore's powers were fading, and manager Alf Ramsey turned to Hunter. It was Hunter's chance to finally claim the shirt. Cruelly, it was Hunter's error. A missed tackle on the touchline led to the Polish goal, eliminating England. The understudy finally takes the stage, only to falter. Hunter's continued admiration for Moore, despite Moore being the shadow that loomed over his entire international career, speaks to Hunter's integrity. He didn't resent Moore for keeping him out of the team. He respected Moore because he knew, better than anyone, how difficult the job was to do perfectly. Number 3 is Jack Charlton. For over a decade, Charlton and Hunter formed the central defensive partnership at Elland Road. The dynamic was a classic study in contrasting styles, creating a perfect whole. Charlton stood 6'3" tall and provided absolute aerial dominance in the English First Division of the 1960s, where the long ball and cross were staple tactics. Charlton's ability to head the ball clear was vital. This aerial supremacy had a direct effect on Hunter's game, gave him freedom. Because Charlton dealt with the high balls and the physical tussles with opposing centre forwards, Hunter was free to operate as a sweeper-cum-destroyer. He could read the game, anticipate the knockdowns often provided by Charlton, and intercept passes on the ground. Hunter's selection of Charlton is an acknowledgement that his own reputation as a world-class defender was partly facilitated by Charlton's towering presence beside him. While Hunter was nicknamed Bites Yer Legs, Charlton was equally fearsome. The Little Black Book of Jack Charlton, a mental and reportedly physical list of players who had wronged him and were due retribution, was legendary. Hunter witnessed Charlton's protective nature firsthand. In the 1970 FA Cup final, when Peter Osgood fouled Charlton, Leeds defender immediately leapt to his feet and barged the striker to the turf. Hunter valued this camaraderie. They were a pack. If you kicked Hunter, you had to answer to Charlton, and vice versa. This shared sense of frontier justice bound them together. The significance of their partnership is now etched into the architecture of Leeds United. Elland Road features the Jack Charlton stand and the Norman Hunter stand. That they both have stands named after them highlights their equal status in the club's mythology. Hunter's choice of Charlton isn't just about skill, it's about the man who stood shoulder to shoulder with him in the trenches. Number 2 is Johnny Giles. If Billy Bremner was the heart of Leeds, Johnny Giles was the brains. Hunter's reverence for Giles centred on the Irishman's supreme footballing intelligence, which elevated Leeds from a team of runners and tacklers, one of the most sophisticated sides in Europe. A specific anecdote illustrates the frightening level of trust, tactical synergy between Hunter and Giles. Giles, known for his ability to dictate play, once instructed Hunter to play a suicide ball, a pass dropped a couple of yards short, intentionally. The purpose was entrapment. Giles asked Hunter to underhit a pass to lure an opponent into thinking he could intercept it. As the opponent committed to the challenge, Giles pounced, leaving his foot in, reducing the opponent to a grievously injured heap. This incident is revelatory. It demonstrates that Hunter was not a rogue agent of violence. He was often the instrument of Giles's calculating mind. Giles orchestrated the game, including the physical intimidation, and Hunter executed the instructions. Hunter respected Giles because Giles saw the game 3 moves ahead. On the pitch, it manifested in Giles's distribution. Giles could send the ball winging out of defence to start attacks. For Hunter, whose primary job was winning the ball, having Giles alongside meant that possession was instantly converted into attack. Hunter didn't have to be the playmaker, because Giles was always available to receive the ball and transition play. Giles reciprocated this respect, including Hunter in his own best 11, and describing him as the best defender he played with. This mutual admiration society was built on the understanding that Giles provided the guile to match Hunter's grit. Number 1 is Billy Bremner. If Norman Hunter was the shield of Leeds United, Billy Bremner was its beating heart. The relationship between Hunter and Bremner was forged in the fires of the second division and hardened on the greatest stages of Europe. Hunter's admiration for Bremner transcends mere teammate camaraderie. It's rooted in a shared philosophy of refusal to yield. Historical records consistently define Bremner as the midfield heartbeat of the side. For Hunter, operating in the defensive line, Bremner was the primary line of protection and the catalyst for transition. Bremner was viewed as the complete midfielder, capable of dictating the tempo, winning the ball, and scoring crucial goals. Hunter's reliance on Bremner was absolute. In the landmark 1968-69 season, Bremner was described as the dynamo known for tireless work rate and leadership. For a defender like Hunter, having a captain who would run himself into the ground provided a psychological safety net. Bremner's presence meant that the defensive line was never exposed without a fight. The Sunday Times famously described Bremner as 10 stone of barbed wire. This description resonated deeply with Hunter, who himself carried a reputation for ferocity. They were kindred spirits in the art of intimidation. 1970 FA Cup final replay against Chelsea remains the defining visual of their partnership, a match of such unchecked brutality that modern referees have admitted they would have issued multiple red cards. In that match, and countless others, Bremner and Hunter operated as a pincer movement of aggression. When Bremner was fouled, such as the incident where Chelsea's Ian Hutchinson floored him, it was often the signal for the rest of the team to step up the physical confrontation. Hunter respected Bremner because the captain never asked his players to engage in a battle he wasn't willing to lead himself. Perhaps the most telling insight into their relationship comes from the end of their lives. Hunter, a man of granite exterior, admitted he only ever cried over 2 people, and Billy Bremner was one of them. Rare admission of vulnerability underscores the depth of the bond. They weren't just colleagues, they were survivors of the Revie revolution. Hunter's choices reveal a connoisseur of the game. The list is a composite of the perfect footballer. Leadership from Billy Bremner, tactics from Johnny Giles, physicality from Jack Charlton, intelligence from Bobby Moore, finishing from Jimmy Greaves, dribbling and bravery from George Best. His selections also reflect the tribalism of his career. Half the list is Leeds United, the family that Revie built. The other half are the kings of the South and the king of the Northwest. Choices capture the essence of English football's golden age through the eyes of one of its most uncompromising protagonists. Valued bravery above all else. It was the physical bravery of Best running the gauntlet, the moral bravery of Bremner leading his team through hatred, or the intellectual bravery of Moore trusting his reading of the game over brute force. The list also serves as a mirror. In admiring Charlton, he admired the partner who made him whole. In admiring Giles, he admired the intellect he relied upon. In admiring Moore, he admired the perfection he couldn't quite displace. And in admiring Greaves and Best, he admired the magic that he, the ultimate destroyer, spent his life trying to extinguish. Norman Hunter was more than a hard man. He was a student of greatness, and his 6 favourite players stand as a testament to the qualities he held most dear.